Okay, well, I had to move. Apparently, my wife thinks it's her right to walk around the hotel room naked, so she kicked me out. Today, it looks like everyone did the physics exam. So let's go over that. Let's spend some time going over the physics exam. Let me pause for a second again. All right, so hopefully, let me just double check our share here. Yep, looks like we are all looking at the same page. Control plus. It's not going to work. I can't seem to zoom in while I am in recording here, but that's okay. So almost everyone got this one correct. What is the frequency of this wave? Now it's important for me to say, assume 1 second shown. If I didn't say 1 second shown, you could conceivably say that we simply don't know. Although, look at the answers, 6, 6, 6, and 6, hertz, kilohertz, milliseconds, and megahertz. That's not even really megahertz because it's a small m, so that's a mistake there. So it's 6 hertz because it's obviously 6 cycles in 1 second. Okay. 1,000 hertz is equal to 1 kilohertz, correct? One of you. A change in frequency caused by motion of a source or reflector. Interesting, a source or reflector defines the Doppler shift, right? A change in frequency. So remember, we always assume that the source, our transducer, is staying perfectly still, and it's only the reflector that is moving. But if you move that transducer while using Doppler, you will Doppler shift just by your movement alone. So that is important to state it in that way. A continuous wave is characterized by multiple frequencies. No, let's see, 90% you got that right. It is not characterized by multiple frequencies. It is a single frequency, a very narrow bandwidth for continuous wave. True, false, a decrease in pressure in regions of high flow speed is called the Poiseuille's effect. False. Remember that, let's see, 85%. So 15% of you got confused between Poiseuille and Bernoulli. Bernoulli has everything to do with pressure, and Poiseuille is volume flow. All right, so we don't worry about Poiseuille's effect with short little stenoses, but with a long stenosis or simply a long vessel that happens to be small, we worry about Poiseuille's effect. In other words, low volume flow. I will mention that, I've said this in the past, that when we look at the vertebral artery, for some reason, rarely do we find, and perhaps just because it's so hard to see the full vertebral artery, but rarely do we find specific locations of stenosis. It's usually more of an overall thinning of the artery. Patients either born that way, oftentimes people are born with disparate sizes in the vertebral artery. Sometimes that can be significant. But when people do develop disease in that artery, it's more of a intimal thickening than a localized plaque. As you know, with intimal thickening, if you're already a thin artery and you have intimal thickening, that artery is going to get smaller awfully fast. Bernoulli has nothing to do in that situation, it is all Poisson. Okay. Number 6, let's see, 95% got amplitude is the maximum variation that occurs in an acoustic variable. Yeah, so acoustic variables, has a number of parameters, amplitude being the maximum variation. Amplitude and intensities, let's see, 95%, you got this one. Amplitude and intensity are indicators of a sound wave's strength. Yes. Intensity, more specifically, is the overall strength of the wave divided by the area. But both of them are indicators of the sound wave's strength. Amplitude is just movement. Overall strength, intensity is strength versus area. What area is that sound wave affecting? Okay, number 8. As I stumble over my words, all of the following are acoustic variables except. So we have pressure, density, and particle vibration are all considered acoustic variables. Remember, some books will add temperature to this. So when we talk about particle vibration, we are in a sense talking about temperature. So more particle vibration, more higher temperature. So I think some people consider it redundant, so they don't mention temperature. But pressure, density, particle vibration. Compression is certainly related. It's kind of in there, but it's simply not one of the acoustic variables. Number 9, almost all ultrasound contrast agents contain gas microbubbles. 100% of you got that one correct. Why are you moving? Okay. Number 10, artifacts can help or hinder proper interpretation and diagnosis. Artifacts can help or hinder. Yes, artifacts oftentimes are just a pain in the butt. It's not helpful. They just ruin the picture. Other times, artifacts can really help us. And so we use those artifacts to give us a better indication of what we're looking at. Question 11, attenuation increases with an increase in wavelength. Attenuation increases with an increase in wavelength. What is an increase in wavelength? Increase in wavelength is lower frequency. And we know that lower frequencies have less attenuation. So this one is false, and 100% of you got that correct. Good. Number 12, at a distance of 2 near zone lengths, the beam diameter is equal to the diameter of the transducer element. Now that is true. It's probably even more true, or better to say, the diameter of the transducer aperture. So, and on a single element transducer, then yes, the beam diameter equals element diameter. But on multi-element transducers, the beam diameter equals the aperture, or however many elements were used. Sometimes it's all of them. Oftentimes it's not all of them. So, but in any case, that is equal to. All right, and let's see. Oh, I saw you got that one. True, false. Axial resolution is often normally better than lateral. That is true. Damping material in pulsed transducers increases the spatial pulse length. False, guys, false. You know that it decreases the spatial pulse length. That is why it is awesome. Duty factor is unitless, yes. It is either a decimal point or a percentage. Elastography. And by the way, that's because when you are figuring out duty factor, you're dividing microseconds by microseconds. So it cancels out, there's no unit left. Okay, elastography takes advantages of shear waves. Ooh, 50%. So higher attenuation in cancer cells? No, although that may be true, and oftentimes with certain cancers have higher attenuation, has nothing to do with elastography. It has something to do with shadowing. High resistance in cancer cells? No, that would, no. And inverse wave technology takes advantage of inverse wave technology. Yeah, it's not inverse wave technology, although that's an understandable choice. It's shear waves. And so remember, shear waves are, or transverse waves, they're the same thing. Shear waves and transverse waves are the same thing. They're what we're actually drawing on the board. When I draw like a sine wave picture on the board, that's, or like the very first picture of this test is technically speaking a picture of a shear wave. But as you know, we simply use that in place of actual sound waves, which are too difficult to deal with when drawing out. Elastography uses the fact that shear waves travel much, much, much slower than sound waves. Now, both are created in the body. How would I was going to say something inappropriate, but how would I? Well, if you slap a belly, the sound of that slap is practically instantaneous. As far as our everyday experiences go, the sound of the slap is instantaneous, but the motion of the belly shaking is shear waves, and that's a lot slower. It may seem fast to our eyes, but to sound, it's practically standing still. And so what happens is that shear waves are created in the body. The sound waves are so fast that they basically can watch the shear waves move. By watching them move, we're able to actually see the speckle pattern move, and the computer is able to recognize movement in the speckle pattern. It's like you're looking at a thick fog and a breeze comes through and you could actually see the fog move. It's kind of like that. The speed of light is instantaneous and the movement of the fog is not. So we're able to see the fog move. Well, you can make an estimate on how fast it's moving. And that's what happens. Shear waves are very slow, but they do travel at different speeds through different materials. Stiff materials, they actually travel faster, just like sound travels faster. And the computer is able to recognize all of that and make educated decisions on the stiffness of the material, of the tissue. Okay, I'm beating a dead horse. Let's see, 75% of you got this one. For a given flow, the greater the Doppler angle, the less the Doppler shift. So remember, Doppler angle, we want, I know, in a carotid, I say 60 degrees, and that's just convention. That's not the best angle. The best angle is 0 or -0, or 0 going the other way, which is 180 degrees, but just think 0. 0 degrees is the best angle. That's the greatest Doppler shift. 90 degrees is the smallest shift. There's technically speaking, no shift at 90 degrees. Let's see, 18. Harmonic frequencies are generated as sound travels through tissue. That is true. Tissue harmonics, because there's also microbubble harmonics. What can I think of? Harmonics caused by microbubbles. Let's see, number 19, if the impedances are equal between two media and perpendicular incidence, there is no 75%. Yeah, this is really tough, guys. You got to keep this straight. Reflection, impedances, impedance. If the impedance is perfectly equal, that tissue interface is invisible to us. It might as well not exist. And that can happen. Hold on. All right, I am on vacation after all. Okay. If the impedances are equal, if the impedances are slightly different, that tissue interface now ultrasonically exists. We can actually see it. And that's how most interfaces are. There's very small differences in impedance. A large impedance difference, we see a strong echo. If we see a strong echo and we don't see much beyond that strong echo. So that's a large impedance difference. But yeah, okay. I'll just go ahead and say it now. So that's impedance. Does it reflect? Does it not? Refraction, a change in direction, has everything to do with speed of sound. And can't be a 90, if it hits the tissue at a 90-degree angle, then it won't refract. All right, 20. If the pressure difference between 2 points increases, the flow rate also increases. 85%. Pressure difference between 2 points. So volume flow is kind of dependent on having a pressure difference. So your heart is at one end and the end of the artery is at the other end. It's obviously nothing's flowing in the heart, nothing is flowing towards the heart, in the heart. In the arteries, everything is flowing away from the heart because the heart produces the pressure to push it along. All right. If you add a second focus, the frame rate will decrease by half. So some of you said double, some of you said remain unchanged. Well, remain unchanged is just wrong. Double's wrong as well. But let's keep this straight. Second focus, frame rate is something we want. We want a high number for frame rate. When we add a second focus, we take our high number and we reduce it. We pretty much reduce it by half. So that's not good for our frame rate. It might be fine, it might be okay because your frame rate was 100, you reduce it to 50, that's still plenty of frame rate. You're not going to see any kind of, what's it called? I want to say pausing of the screen, blurring or whatever. You're still having a very, very high frame rate. But if you start at 50 and you add a second focus, now you're down to 25. You're actually okay at 25, but don't add a third focus because then you're going to be down at what, 12 frames per second, and that is a noticeable image quality. Time quality to the images goes down. Okay, in a curved array, the pulses travel out in different directions. Yes. Parallel lines or lines. So I misspelled lines, but still in parallel lines, no, actually they're not parallel. They're close to parallel, but close doesn't count. because the farther those lines go away, the further they separate from each other. So they're not perfectly parallel. Faster in the center of the, no, guys, come on. Faster in the center of the beam. And from out in different directions from the apex. Okay, no one did that one. In a stenosis, flow speed increases and pressure decreases. Let's see, in stenosis, flow speed increases and pressure decreases. Yes, flow speed increasing, that's, you gotta maintain that volume flow. You know, if you got 100 milliliters going in, you need 100 milliliters going out. There, unless you've sprung a leak, it's got to be equal. And so to keep it equal, the speed has to increase. So the kinetic energy goes up, we have to steal it from somewhere else, we take it from pressure. All right. In oblique incidence, the blank and the blank angles are always equal. Well, 90% of you got, excuse me, I got this correct, incidence and reflection. If you shine a laser at a mirror at an angle, it always goes in at the same angle that it comes out. So 10% or 10 degree angle going in, 10 degree angle going out, 50 going in, 50 going out. Right up until 90, and then 90 going in, and it reflects directly back at you, so it's 90 back out. Increased intensity of echoes in the focal region of the beam is called, oh yeah, 85%, you got that, focal banding. Yeah, increased intensity of echoes in the focal region. So yeah, the beam has narrowed down to its thinnest point in the focal region, specifically at the focal point. And that's going to increase intensity because your beam per square centimeter that has gone down. So your strength of that echo is going to go up right at that specific point. And so, you know, to fix that, you just use your TGCs. Increasing the frame rate improves temporal resolution. Yep. Frame rate has everything to do with speed, nothing to do with any other resolution other than speed, or I shouldn't say speed. Well, I mean speed and time, yeah. I mean it's time, temporal resolution, time resolution, speed of the frame rate is really what I meant. I don't want to confuse that with any other kind of speed, like speed of sound or anything. That doesn't change. You drop a cork on the ground, that's not good. Okay, I'm back. Let's see, it may be possible to resolve slice thick. I'm not on the clock, by the way, so I can do that. It may be possible to resolve slice thickness artifact. Resolve. I mean, yeah, that's to improve upon slice thickness artifact by using harmonic imaging. Yeah, that is true. 70% you got that. That's a hard one. Let's see. Using multiple focal zones. 15% of you went with that one. Using a phased array. Not phased array and not imaging depth. This one takes a little bit. Using multiple focal zones. It would have to specify focal zones with either a 1.5 or a 2-dimensional transducer, because you can't focus in the thickness artifact. You could have a fixed focus, but you can't focus in that thickness slice thickness artifact using focal zones. Unless you have, instead of a single row of elements, you have, I don't know, 5 rows of elements, and it's able to focus in that direction as well as focus in the lateral direction. So why harmonic imaging? Well, harmonic imaging, remember, it's created over time as it goes through the tissue, time and distance, I guess. It's only created in the strongest beams. So that's one where it really avoids those grading or side lobe artifacts, because those are weak beams entirely. So those harmonic imaging kind of gets rid of those artifacts, which is nice. But think about the diameter of a beam and how the middle of that beam is the strongest. So the middle of a harmonic produced beam, let's see, how do I say this? Harmonics are only created in the middle of a beam. By using only the middle of the beam, you've essentially narrowed that beam in all dimensions, lateral and slice thickness. By narrowing that beam entirely, you've actually reduced slice thickness. That's a tough one. That's by far the hardest question so far, as Omaha, Nebraska has a thing for me. Okay. 28. Intensity is equal to the power of a wave divided by the over which the power is spread. 100% of you got area. Good. Mirror image is commonly seen around which structure? The diaphragm, 100%. Motion towards the transducer demonstrates the positive Doppler shift, 100%. Oh, that's right. I got a bunch of these from previous tests, didn't I? I think you've seen these before. Lateral resolution is equal to the beam width. Optoson, Optoson and Imagens are names of ultrasound contrast agents. I have to say, I don't have anything to write. 32. Happy holidays, Kurt. I wanted to check in with you. I'm going to pause this because you know what? I think Optoson and Imagen. Well, guys, remember those? It's worth remembering. It's not mentioned in our book, though. It's mentioned in another book, and so that's not fair. Okay, I just have to write a little note for myself for number 32. I'm going to give how do I do that? Okay, so fairness. This is how I do this. In order for people who got that one correct, even if they just guessed, but in order for them to get the credit they deserve for getting it right, but still giving everyone else credit, what I'm going to do is it's a 2-point question. I'm going to raise it to 4 points. And you get all 4 points if you get it right. If you got it right, you get 2 points if you didn't get it right. So in other words, it would be like it didn't exist. It doesn't count against you, but if you did get it right, you get the points. It took me a long time to figure out how to make that fair in those kind of situations. Okay, multiple reflections between two structures describes reverberation. Let's see. Mirror image. No, not refraction. Mirror image, not really. I mean, reverberation, it is a better answer. I have to stick to my guns on that one. Okay, Poiseuille's equation states that if the flow rate increases, the length, we have 75% of you got this one. Oh, okay, Excuse me, that was, you all just got to see my tonsils. That was so pleasant, I'm sure. Tube length has increased. No. So if you know the equation, you at least know that L is on the bottom, and length, that makes sense. If you're going to increase flow rate, you're probably not increasing the length of the tube, because the longer the tube, the more difficult it is for fluid to flow through it. There's actually an interesting story, has nothing to do with ultrasound, but I'll tell you anyways, because just thought of it. A guy kidnapped I believe it was a woman, and was holding her for ransom, and kind of buried her underground. It was kind of like an underground grave, and did a tube so that she could breathe, like a breathing tube. But he was afraid that if the tube was short, that she'd be able to get up to it and scream through it, and someone would hear her and find her. So he made the tube like long, like, I don't know, 20 feet long. Well, there's kind of a double whammy with that. One, that increased the resistance to flow, the volume flow rate. Human lungs are designed to push air through a 6-inch trachea, not a 20-foot trachea. And so she doesn't have the physical strength. No one has the physical strength to breathe through a 20-foot tube. And of course, the other problem is that even if you could breathe through that tube, that air would be stuck in the tube and just be going back and forth. She died, unfortunately. But the guy thought he was gonna just get some money. He ends out going away for murder. Anywho, so if you bury someone, short tubes. That's the moral of the story. Let's see, sway, phasing can 100% focus, improve image quality, and steer the beam. Yes, yes, and yes. How does it improve image quality? Through focusing, right. So it's focusing the beam, phasing outside in, which improves image quality. We could also steer the beam and focus at the same time, but all that is phasing. Passing the Nyquist limit in Doppler imaging results in aliasing. Propagation speed is primarily determined by the stiffness of the medium. Yeah. 38, pulse repetition frequency refers to the number, 95%, number of pulses occurring in 1 second. Section thickness artifact is a result of beam width perpendicular to the scan plane. Scan plane, another way to think about it, I'm looking at my screen right now, that my screen is thin. Well, it's not physically, well, you know what, it is physically thin, but it's not as thin as a knife. I wouldn't be able to cut bologna with this, but it is a rather thin screen. But I'm looking at it as if it is a super thin screen with writing on it. Reality is that it has a thickness to it. That is your slice thickness, and it's perpendicular to the scan plane. Okay, shortening the pulses in diagnostic ultrasound broadens the bandwidth. Yep. Stiffer media have higher sound speeds. Yeah. Sound requires a medium through which to travel. Yes. What kind of wave does not require a medium to travel? The only reason I asked is because for some reason they could actually make reference to this on the SPI. No medium, no problem, light. Electromagnetism does not need a medium. So light can travel through space, no problem. Storage of the last several frames required before freezing is called cine loop. It's not storage of the last frames. Well, certainly it's not freeze. It's not triplex. I think that was just made up. Picture archiving. I mean, it's certainly not picture archiving. Cine loop's the only one that's the best answer, but not particularly, not a perfect question, I'll have to admit. The algorithm used in color flow, yeah, it's either the fast Fourier transform or autocorrelation. In this case, autocorrelation. FFT is used in pulse wave. Or another word for pulse wave, the next answer, spectral trace. All right. Fraction of time that pulsed ultrasound is on is the duty factor. Ratio of the largest to the smallest amplitude that a system can handle is called dynamic range. Yep. Use of Doppler and grayscale imaging at the same time is duplex. Duty duplex. Variance color maps do degree of turbulence. Ooh, a bunch of you guys got that. Changes in vessel direction. A bunch of you might have chosen that because it seems to have a different font size. That's weird. Which can throw people off because I think it's some kind of trick degree of speed uniformity. Huh. It's turbulence. Degree of turbulence. We don't use variance in general. Ecotechs use it. And 50, what units are used to quantify attenuation? What? Oh, yeah, okay, 25% use of decibels per centimeter. That's the tricky thing. Attenuation coefficient is decibels per centimeter, whereas attenuation is only decibels. Right. Let me pause. I actually have some other stuff here. Let's see if I can. Oh shit, that was not paused. So that was it's a Knob Creek old fashioned, and well worth it. If that's not paused, God, I hope I didn't just lose a whole bunch of this. I don't think I did, but I just I think I got confused between pause sharing and pause recording. So I think I paused the share and I didn't pause recording. Well, so all right, you guys caught me. Anyway, so my handwriting's a little poor. I did this on the plane, so forgive me, but just a few more questions. Well, let's just do them. Let's do them. Okay, for a disc-shaped PZT, I was going to say PZT, piezoelectric. No, lead zirconate titanate, right? Crystal producing continuous sound. Which design will create a beam with the shallowest focus? Ooh, okay, right. So I don't have my book with me right now. It's gonna make me think. Can't have my questions in front of me. All right, so shallowest focus. In other words, we want to see something that kind of has a focus that's not too far away. Well, what are a couple of things that could do that? A narrow or a small diameter element, right? Because a larger diameter is going to put that focus farther out. A narrow diameter is going to keep that focus farther in. All right, so no. So it's either C or D, right? Low frequency or high frequency. Remember, frequency does the exact opposite of what you would think. Even though high frequency has high attenuation and we don't use it for deeper imaging, it does actually have a longer, I forgot we're looking for shallow, has a longer focus. So we want a low frequency, small diameter. All right. Small, and we want FO to be low. You put those together and we have a short focus. Is that right? No. Oh my God. What did I just say? I want a shallow focus. See, this is why I can't do this. I can't think and talk at the same time. I want a shallow focus. Yeah. Because high focus is deeper and lower is relatively shallow. Okay, yes. Whew, scare myself there. All right. Next one, 322. As sound travels deeply into the far zone, the beam diverges or spreads out. Which of the following result in a minimum beam divergence? Okay, let's just quickly draw this again. We'll have a, let's do it. So, just want you to remember something, guys. No matter what the reason is for a shallow focus, whether it's transducer width, whether it's frequency, whether it's just simply purposely focusing shorter with a in other words, a multi-element transducer. This is a single element transducer. No matter why, though, when you bring it up close, it simply spreads out faster. When the shallow is deeper, it spreads out, but at a slower rate of speed, all right? So let's now, having said that, we want travels deeply in the far zone, where it spreads out, which of the following result in a minimum? Okay. We want it wide. So small diameter, no. That's a large diameter, that's a possibility. That's a large diameter, and that's a small diameter, so no. So it's either B or C. And we know that a higher frequency, HFO, high frequency, tends to produce a shorter length, near zone length, therefore a higher spread rate. So we want a low frequency. So large diameter, low frequency, C. God damn it. Damn it, Kurt, I can't go back and erase all of this. I mean, I could physically erase this, but I cannot erase what I just said. All right, you're stuck with it. You're stuck with me screwing up royally and not really being able to do this again because I'd have to redo the entire video here. Hi, high frequency has the longer near zone length or longer focal point. Wider has a longer focal point. Wide and high. It's got to be B. It's got to be B. I should probably run down, grab that stupid book. All right, let's go through the rest of these. I don't want to make this too long here. All the following describe the shape of a sound wave created by a tiny fragment of PZT element. All the following describe it, except tiny fragment. So I've drawn a tiny fragment over here. A single tiny fragment. What does the sound do coming out of that? Does it create thousands of Huygens wavelets? Creates a beam of sound? No. Creates more or less a cone of sound. Really, it spreads out in all directions, but we're going to call it a cone because that's what it says. So spherical, yeah. This is basically going to create. I've created a V-shaped image, upside down V. Hourglass. The shape of sound line created by V-shaped. I'm sorry, you know what? I circled C. That's not. See, there we go. Because it's except it is V-shaped. It is spherical. Coming out, sphere as in round. It is a single wavelength, and I don't know how it's going to create an hourglass shape. It cannot create this shape if it's not. See, this says wavelet. It doesn't say wavelets. It just says wavelet, like it's single Huygens wavelet. So it is not hourglass shaped.